The 1980s were the decade Japan stopped chasing the world and started outrunning it. Turbochargers, all-wheel drive, rotary power, and engineering that embarrassed cars twice the price. These machines didn't just break speed records, they built reputations that still haven't faded. This is the list of the 10 fastest Japanese cars of the 1980s. Legends that rewrote performance history. From racetrack-dominating monsters to quiet grand tourers hiding shocking speed, every car here earned its place the hard way. Stay till the end, because some of the most iconic performance cars Japan ever produced were born in this era, and nothing that came after was ever the same. Nissan Skyline GTR R32 1989. The Nissan Skyline GTR didn't arrive looking like a supercar, and that was the first mistake people made. The R32 carried sharp lines and a purposeful stance, but nothing about it screamed dominance. It looked disciplined, controlled, almost conservative. Underestimating it, however, proved to be a costly decision for nearly everyone who tried. Beneath the hood sat the engine that would change Japanese performance forever. The RB26DETT, a 2.6-liter twin-turbo inline-six. Officially rated at 276 horsepower under Japan's gentleman's agreement, real-world output was widely believed to be significantly higher. Torque measured around 260 pound-feet, delivered with relentless consistency rather than sudden drama. This wasn't an engine designed to impress on paper. It was engineered to survive abuse. What truly separated the R32 from its rivals was how it used that power. The Atessa ETS all-wheel drive system constantly adjusted torque distribution, while Super Heika's rear-wheel steering sharpened cornering behavior. The result was a car that launched harder, cornered flatter, and exited turns faster than machines that looked far more exotic. Performance numbers backed up the reputation. The R32 could sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in roughly 4.8 seconds, with a top speed limited to 155 miles per hour. But numbers only told part of the story. On the racetrack, the GTR was devastating. It dominated Group A racing, winning championship after championship and humiliating established European rivals. Toyota Supra Turbo A70 1986 to 1989. The Toyota Supra Turbo never tried to look outrageous. Its sharp edges, pop-up headlights, and long hood gave it presence, but nothing about it screamed supercar. In the late 1980s, it appeared more like a refined grand tourer than a pure performance machine. That restraint caused many to underestimate it, a mistake Toyota engineers clearly didn't make. Under the hood sat the turbocharged 7M GTE, a 3-liter inline-six that delivered 232 horsepower and around 254 pound-feet of torque. For its time, those numbers placed the Supra firmly among the fastest Japanese cars on sale. Power came on smoothly but forcefully, with turbo boost transforming the Supra from calm cruiser to serious high-speed machine. It wasn't explosive, it was relentless. What truly defined the A70 Supra was balance. Toyota paired the turbo engine with a rear-wheel drive layout, a well-sorted chassis, and available advanced features like electronically adjustable suspension and limited slip differentials. At speed, the Supra felt stable and planted, especially on long, fast roads where its weight and wheelbase worked in its favor. Push harder, though, and the car demanded precision. Sudden inputs or overconfidence could overwhelm the rear, reminding drivers that this was a powerful machine built before modern safety nets. Performance figures reflected its capability. The A70 Supra Turbo could reach 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 5.8 seconds, with a top speed near 155 miles per hour. But raw speed wasn't its defining trait. What made it legendary was how effortlessly it combined comfort, durability, and real performance, a formula few competitors could match. The A70 Supra didn't chase attention. It earned respect quietly, laying the foundation for one of the most iconic performance lineages Japan would ever produce. And what comes next pushed speed even further. Mazda RX-7 Turbo 2 FC 1986 to 1989. Balance defined the Mazda RX-7 Turbo 2 before power power ever entered the conversation. Everything about the FC generation reflected restraint and intent, from its low nose and wide stance to its smooth aerodynamic profile. It didn't attempt to dominate through aggression or visual excess. Instead, it projected precision, signaling that this was a machine engineered for drivers who valued control above spectacle. At the heart of the Turbo 2 sat Mazda's 13B turbocharged rotary engine, a compact and unconventional power plant that defined the RX-7's identity. Producing around 182 horsepower and 183 pound-feet of torque, the rotary delivered performance in a way few piston engines could match. Power built smoothly, encouraging high revs and rewarding commitment rather than brute force inputs. The experience was linear, responsive, and uniquely engaging. What truly separated the FC RX-7 from its rivals was its near-perfect weight distribution and lightweight construction. With power sent to the rear wheels and a carefully tuned chassis, the Turbo 2 felt sharp, composed, and remarkably communicative. Steering inputs translated instantly into movement, and the car remained balanced through corners even when pushed hard. Mistakes weren't softened or hidden, they were exposed, demanding skill and discipline from the driver. Performance figures supported its reputation. The RX-7 Turbo 2 could sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in roughly 5.9 seconds, with a top speed close to 150 miles per hour, placing it firmly among the fastest Japanese cars of the late 1980s. Yet numbers alone failed to explain its impact. The RX-7 Turbo 2 wasn't about domination through power. It was about precision, discipline, and engineering clarity. A machine that proved true performance depended on balance, and that mastery mattered more than excess. Nissan 300ZX Turbo, Z31. With the 300ZX Turbo, Nissan made it clear that performance was no longer optional. The Z31 arrived with sharp, angular bodywork, a long hood, and unmistakable 1980s proportions that projected seriousness rather than excess. It looked deliberate and technical, a car shaped by engineering priorities instead of visual drama. This wasn't styling for attention. It was design with purpose. At the core of the Z31 Turbo was Nissan's VG30 ET, a 3-liter single-turbo V6 producing around 200 horsepower and 227 pound-feet of torque. For the mid-1980s, those figures placed the 300ZX firmly among the fastest Japanese performance cars available. Power delivery was smooth and controlled, with turbo boost building progressively instead of hitting violently. It encouraged sustained speed rather than reckless bursts. What truly set the 300ZX Turbo apart was its balance between speed and refinement. Rear-wheel drive, a relatively long wheelbase, and a well-sorted suspension gave it impressive stability at high speeds. On fast roads, it felt planted and composed, rewarding precise inputs while punishing careless ones. Push too hard, and the weight over the front reminded drivers that this was a serious machine demanding respect. Performance numbers supported its reputation. The Z31 Turbo could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 6 seconds, with the top speed approaching 155 miles per hour, depending on market and gearing. But figures alone didn't define its impact. The Nissan 300ZX Turbo wasn't about raw aggression. It represented a turning point, proof that Japanese manufacturers could deliver speed, durability, and engineering discipline in one complete package. Mature, capable, and undeniably fast, the Z31 helped cement Japan's place in the global performance conversation. Enjoying these legends so far? Hit like and subscribe for more iconic Japanese performance cars. Mitsubishi Starion ESIR. The Mitsubishi Starion ESIR was built to challenge expectations, not follow trends. Its wide fenders, long hood, and sharp angles gave it a presence that felt aggressive without being flashy. This wasn't a car chasing elegance or nostalgia. It was designed to look serious, purposeful, and unapologetically performance-focused. Under the hood sat Mitsubishi's turbocharged 2.6-liter G54B inline-4, producing around 176 horsepower and approximately 223 pound-feet of torque. What made the Starion dangerous wasn't peak power, but torque delivery. Boost arrived with authority, pushing hard through the mid-range and giving the car a muscular feel that surprised drivers expecting a high-revving sports coupe. Power was sent to the rear wheels, reinforcing its traditional performance layout. The ESIR's wide-body stance wasn't cosmetic. It existed to manage power and stability, allowing wider tires and improved grip at speed. On the road, the Sterion felt planted and confident, especially in straight-line acceleration and fast sweepers. But it demanded discipline. Sudden throttle inputs or poor corner entry could unsettle the chassis, reminding drivers that turbocharged torque in the 1980s came without electronic safety nets. Performance numbers reflected its intent. The Sterion ESIR could reach 0 to 60 miles per hour in the low 6-second range, with a top speed approaching 150 miles per hour, placing it among the fastest Japanese performance cars of its time. Yet, raw speed was only part of the story. The Mitsubishi Sterion ESIR represented a moment when Japan was no longer experimenting. It was competing. Bold, turbocharged, and uncompromising. It proved Mitsubishi was serious about performance long before the world fully noticed. Toyota Soarer 3.0 GT Turbo Performance. In the Soarer 3.0 GT Turbo was something to be controlled, not advertised. It avoided visual aggression, relying instead on long, elegant proportions and a restrained design that projected quiet authority. Rather than chasing attention, the Soarer communicated confidence through composure, clearly engineered for sustained, high-speed travel instead of dramatic displays. Beneath the hood sat Toyota's turbocharged 7M GTE, a 3-liter inline-6, producing around 230 horsepower and 254 pound-feet of torque. Power delivery was smooth and torque-rich, favoring steady, uninterrupted acceleration over sudden bursts. The turbocharged 6 gave the Soarer effortless speed, particularly at highway pace, where it felt calm and completely unstrained even as speeds climbed quickly. What truly defined the Soarer 3.0 GT Turbo was its balance between performance and refinement. Rear-wheel drive, a long wheelbase, and a well-insulated chassis delivered exceptional stability at speed. On fast roads, the car felt planted and composed, rewarding smooth inputs and disciplined driving. Push it harder, however, and its weight made itself known, reminding drivers that this was a powerful grand tourer, demanding respect rather than aggression. Performance figures supported its reputation. The Soarer 3.0 GT Turbo could reach 0 to 60 miles per hour in roughly 6 seconds, with a top speed near 155 miles per hour, placing it among the fastest Japanese cars of the late 1980s. But numbers alone didn't define its appeal. The Toyota Soarer 3.0 GT Turbo represented a different kind of performance legend, one built on composure, engineering maturity, and the ability to deliver serious speed without sacrificing control. If this car surprised you, hit like and subscribe. There's more legendary speed coming. Mitsubishi Galant VR4, 1988 to 1989. The Galant VR4 wasn't built to impress in a showroom. It was built to survive punishment. From the outside, it looked like a disciplined 4-door sedan, conservative and almost anonymous. There were no dramatic curves or aggressive styling cues to hint at what lay beneath. That understatement wasn't accidental. It was camouflage for one of the most serious performance machines Mitsubishi ever produced. Under the hood sat the turbocharged 4G63, a 2-liter inline-4 producing around 195 horsepower and 218 pound-feet of torque. More important than the numbers was how that power was deployed. The VR4 featured full-time all-wheel drive, 4-wheel steering in some markets, and advanced electronic systems that were years ahead of most competitors. Traction was relentless, allowing the Galant to put power down in conditions that left rear-wheel drive rivals struggling. On the road, the VR4 felt planted and unshakable. Acceleration was urgent but controlled, and the chassis inspired confidence even when pushed hard. Where other sedans lost composure, the Galant remained stable, almost indifferent to abuse. But that capability demanded respect. Push beyond the limits, and the car's mass and speed made mistakes costly. This wasn't a playful machine, it was a serious one. Performance figures reflected its intent. The Galant VR4 could reach 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 6.5 seconds, with a top speed near 145 95 miles per hour. Remarkable numbers for a four-door sedan in the late 1980s. Yet its true legacy wasn't speed alone. The Galant VR4 was the blueprint. It proved Mitsubishi could combine turbo power, all-wheel drive, and durability into a single package. And it quietly laid the foundation for one of the greatest rally legends the world would soon meet. The next car proved there was more than one way to be fast. Like the breakdown? Subscribe for more deep dives into Japan's performance history. 3. Toyota Celica GT4 ST165 1986 to 1989. Toyota Celica GT4 ST165 1986 to 1989. Before it became a road car, this was a rally weapon. The Toyota Celica GT4 may have looked like a clean, disciplined coupe, but beneath that familiar shape lived something far more serious. This wasn't a styling exercise or a road car pretending to be fast. It existed for one reason only: homologation. Toyota built it so they could compete and win on the world's toughest rally stages. At its core was the turbocharged 3S GTE, a 2-liter inline 4 producing around 185 horsepower and 184 pound-feet of torque. But the engine was only part of the story. A full-time all-wheel drive system gave the GT4 relentless traction, allowing it to put power down in conditions that overwhelmed most rear-wheel drive sports cars of the era. Grip wasn't optional, it was engineered in. On the road, the ST165 felt planted and composed rather than dramatic. Boost built smoothly, and the chassis remained stable even when pushed hard. The car encouraged commitment, rewarding drivers who trusted its balance and traction. But that confidence came with responsibility. Carry too much speed into a corner, and the weight and momentum reminded you that this was a serious performance machine, born from competition. Performance figures reflected its capability. The Celica GT4 could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in roughly 6.5 seconds, with a top speed near 140 miles per hour. Impressive numbers for a late 1980s all-wheel drive coupe. Yet speed alone didn't define it. The ST165 GT4 proved that rally engineering could thrive on the street. Purpose-built, durable, and brutally effective. It marked the beginning of Toyota's dominance in all-wheel drive performance and set the foundation for legends that followed. Nissan Skyline RS Turbo R30 1983 to 1985. This was the car Nissan used to remind the world it still knew how to build performance machines. The Skyline RS Turbo arrived without drama or flair, wearing a boxy, business-like shape that suggested restraint rather than aggression. It looked closer to an executive sedan than a performance icon, and that was deliberate. Beneath that conservative exterior sat a car designed to rebuild Nissan's credibility at a time when its motorsport ambitions were being quietly redefined. Power came from the turbocharged FJ20ET, a 2-liter inline 4 producing around 190 horsepower and 181 pound-feet of torque. Impressive figures for the early 1980s. More than the output, it was the engine's construction that mattered. With a strong iron block and racing-focused internals, it was built to handle sustained boost and punishment. Power delivery was raw and mechanical, rewarding drivers who kept the engine on boost rather than relying on effortless torque. Driving the RS Turbo demanded discipline. Rear-wheel drive and a relatively light chassis made acceleration feel sharp, but there was little forgiveness when pushed hard. Narrow tires and firm suspension meant sudden throttle inputs could unsettle the rear instantly. This wasn't a polished or forgiving performance car. It exposed mistakes and expected the driver to adapt. Performance figures backed up its intent. The RS Turbo could reach 0 to 60 miles per hour in the low 6-second range, with a top speed near 140 miles per hour, placing it among the fastest Japanese sedans of its era. Yet, speed alone didn't define its role. The R30 RS Turbo was a foundation car. It carried Nissan through a critical transition period, bridging motorsport ambition and future dominance. Without it, the Skyline legend that followed might never have existed, and what came next raised the stakes even higher. Mazda Cosmo Turbo HB 1981 to 1983. This wasn't Mazda chasing trends. This was Mazda rewriting the rulebook. The Cosmo Turbo arrived as something entirely different from the sports cars of its time. Long, sleek, and unmistakably futuristic, it looked less like a performance coupe and more like a rolling statement of intent. There was no aggression in its design, no visual shouting, just quiet confidence and a sense that this car was operating on a different level altogether. Power came from Mazda's turbocharged 12A rotary, producing around 160 horsepower and roughly 140 pound-feet of torque. Unlike conventional piston engines, the rotary delivered power with a smooth, continuous pull, and the turbocharger amplified its high-revving character instead of overwhelming it. Acceleration felt refined, yet decisive, reinforcing the Cosmo's role as a high-speed grand tourer rather than a raw sports machine. On the road, the Cosmo Turbo favored composure over confrontation. Rear-wheel drive and a carefully balanced chassis gave it stability at speed, while advanced technology, including digital instrumentation that felt futuristic for the early 1980s, underlined Mazda's forward-thinking mindset. Push the car hard, though, and it demanded discipline. With minimal driver aids and a powerful drivetrain, smooth inputs weren't optional, they were required. Performance figures supported its capability. The Cosmo Turbo could reach 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 7 seconds, with a top speed near 135 miles per hour. Impressive numbers for a luxury-leaning coupe of its era. But performance alone wasn't the point. The Mazda Cosmo Turbo stood for ambition. It showed Mazda was willing to take risks others avoided, blending rotary power, turbocharging, and advanced technology into a single, cohesive machine. In doing so, it laid the foundation for one of Japan's boldest luxury performance lineages and proved that innovation, when done right, could be just as powerful as raw speed.